Hello. Another live video Thursday night. Thank you for tuning in. Tonight, I actually came down with the intention to do something else, and then I had a bit of an epiphany in the car on the way down after helping a customer out today that I might actually go through the different interfacings that we have that you can use for your different sewing projects and how they work and indeed how they look. So, first of all, Mermaid Gloves. Tonight I've gone back to my old favourites because I had a bit of a disaster on my live video last week. I was a bit burnt, so I'm going to avoid those gloves because they're cursed, and we're going to put these ones on instead. So, I wanted to make up a sample for the shop. So, on the rare occasion when I'm not here, if you come on in and Mikey's here, you can still see what all these different samples do. And in doing that, I thought, you know what? Let's do a demonstration tonight on the interfacings that we can use. And I've got 5 stars of the show and then a couple of honorable mentions and a couple of cool things in a can. Alrighty, so without any further ado, let's get started. No sewing machine tonight, just my Kmart ironing board, which I think cost me 15 bucks, and my little iron that Shez gave me for my birthday. And that's it. Alright, let's start. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a piece of fabric and I'm going to pop this on some of the fabric so you can see the difference it makes for the end result. And the first thing we're going to talk about is good old-fashioned fusible interfacing. So now, fusible interfacing, give me a second, I had a pattern I put here especially so I could show you. Fusible interfacing is what goes down typically the front of a shirt. Oh, here we go. I was just going to push here anyway. When you make a t-shirt, a button-up shirt, bowling shirt, bed shirt like this, where the buttons go and around the collar, you probably have noticed that that fabric is firmer, stiffer than the rest of the fabric. That's because there's an interfacing in this strip here and up and around the collar to give it extra body. And it's not too thick so that you look like you're wearing an Elizabethan collar, but it's thick enough to take the weight, first of all the stress of a button and a buttonhole going on your shirt, and also to give that collar a nice flat finish. Now, that being said, you can get stitch-in versions of this. We'll cover that in a second, but most commonly these days we use a fusible version. So let's have a look at how to use it. So first of all, on one side, see that shine? That's the glue. And the other side, this is what's called a non-woven interfacing. And you might have heard that knocked around a little bit when we were talking about mask linings. It is just compressed fibers. So there's no actual fabric, it's just compressed fibers. You can get all sorts of grades of this. I carry a nice medium grade. It's got just a little bit of stretch, but it doesn't pull apart when you stretch it. If you're looking for an interfacing for you, you're not near me, of course you can call, I can post it to you, but if you're going into your local Spotlight store, or if you've got one haberdashery store, just pull it. And if you get a little bit of ease without it all just pulling apart, then that's the interfacing for you. And then you go ahead and fuse this glue side to the wrong side of your fabric. Now, if you put it down this way, it's easier to see what's going on, but you don't want to pop your hot iron right onto this. Sometimes you'll get away with it, but sometimes you'll actually melt it and it'll actually turn into little lumpy balls. So if at all possible, flip it over and iron through the fabric. Couple of benefits of ironing through the fabric. If you think about it, this stuff here is a little bit resistant to the heat, so it tends to slow the heat down a little bit. While going through the fabric, you're getting closer to the glue to melt it. So ironing through the fabric is usually the way to go. If, however, you're doing something a bit tricky like a pre-cut facing or something, you might find it hard to line it all up with the fabric right side up, in which case you want one of these magic little numbers here. This is a non-stick applique mat. It's a Teflon sheet. Price is a couple different sizes, priced around 10 bucks, plus or minus a bit depending on what size you get. But it is a lovely Teflon sheet, and you can see I've used this for a long time. And what it does is it protects everything from the glue sticking to other stuff. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make a little sandwich. We're going to put the Teflon sheet on top of your ironing board, pop the fabric right side down, interfacing over the top, glue side to the wrong side of the fabric. So the Teflon on the ironing board will save you if you accidentally do this, and then it stops it from gluing to your ironing board. So we put this here, and then we're going to fold this over to protect it, like so, and then we want to give it a press. Now, I often get asked about whether or not you should use steam in your iron. I typically do. However, if you're nervous, just turn the steam off. Obviously, my little craft iron here is a non-steam one, but the other little birch ones kicking around are. Steam typically doesn't hurt. It's more of the fabric that you're worried about reacting to the steam than anything else. Now, we want to give a press like so, not a backwards and forwards iron. So little press, move on, little press, move on, little press, move on. And remember, the whole purpose is we want to melt the glue that's on the other side of this interfacing and have it stick to the fabric. Now, once you've done that, it's tempting to pick it up and celebrate your success that it's fused. But what we really should do is just check a corner. And if it looks like it's holding for us, give the glue a second to dry. Thank you, Carol. If you let the glue cool down on your ironing board before you run off and handle it too much, everything will stay together. If you handle this a lot and scrunch it up while the glue is still technically wet, then it'll pull away from the fabric, bubble off the fabric, and you'll get your interfacing separating. So let that cool, and then once it's done, here's the purpose of your interfacing. So there's our fabric, and you can see the side with the interfacing, and look at the difference. See how this one droops on this side, but we don't have any droop on this side. So now you can go ahead and stitch your buttons onto here, use it for your collar and whatnot, and you have a lovely stiff but not too stiff interfacing for your shirt. Now this stuff here is $2.70 a meter, and it's 90 centimeters wide, and I call it medium fusible interfacing. Check. My plan is too, I'm going to put these on the website, but I don't want to rush it. I want to make sure all my website's filled with good pictures. So soon, very soon. Okay, so medium interfacing, fusible interfacing, $2.70 a meter. Check. Now, I mentioned non-fusible. I'm going to show you this one here. This is a non-fusible version of this interfacing, and this we sell for two purposes. One, it's very good for tracing patterns because you can screw it all up and smooth it back out, which you can't do with a paper pattern. And two, it's very popular for masks because it doesn't have any glue on. You can't use your glue non-woven interfacing in a mask because obviously you don't breathe through the glue. So this stuff here is $3 a meter. It's just a little bit thicker, and it's great for that sort of stitch in purpose. So no glue on that one. Alrighty, over here, first sample, check. All right, number two. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see, down my list on my little sample. So we've done this guy here. Oh, I want to talk about this one. This is called Weft, and it has been kicking around for a long time, called Whisper Weft. That was a brand name, and needle workers would use it to put behind their fabric before they put it into the hoop, because it would give some support to the stitches. But as you can see, it's super duper soft. So it doesn't, while this is cool, this one here, where did I put my sample? I threw it too far away. This one here is nice and firm, but you can see it has this crinkly property to it, which is, I guess, its purpose. This one here, not so firm, but it still gives a little bit of something to that fabric for stability. So that's where it started. But I hear you think, Penny, I'm not doing any hand embroidery. What would I use that for? I really like this for small projects where I want to have the fabric have a little bit of something, but I don't want it to be stiff. So for example, this is a little bag that I use to keep my cam press dies in for the shop. And you can see here, it's got a little something going on, but there's no stiffness to it. It's nice and soft. So if I just done this in 2 layers of fabric, that fabric would wear very quickly, and you know, it'd be very threadbare. But because I've got that Whisper Weft in there, it's got a little bit of something going on, but nothing stiff and crispy. So one of the things about this Whisper Weft, It's a Birch brand Weft, so it's 90 centimeters wide, and it's only $5 a meter, which is a bargain. Particularly, oh, dare I say it, but if you were to go to the next nearest store that sold sewing supplies near us, they sell it for $16 a meter. Shame on them. So $5 a meter. This is a great little product. Let's see how it looks on our fabric. So there is a glue side again. I don't know if you can see the shine so much on here, but you can definitely feel the glue on this side, soft on this side. Actually, you might be able to see this is a little bit fluffy on the non-glue side. Cool. So same rules as before. We are going to pop down our bit of fabric, right side down with our fabric, line up our weft, glue side down to the wrong side of the fabric, and if possible, I'm going to turn it over and iron it through the right side of the fabric. And we're going to try and do that a little bit more as the things we do get thicker. So applique sheet's going to go down to protect my ironing board. This guy's going to go here. Turn it over here, and you'll see it's actually sticking better than the non-woven, because this is actually a woven interface. See, it's got a little weave in there. All right, so down it goes, and we're going to iron through. And again, just small movements, hard pressing down firmly as you go. You can also use this for dressmaking. If you wanted to make something, say you want to use patchwork fabric for a jacket, and I love patchwork fabric for dressmaking, particularly for kids, because it's such bright colors. This will give it a little bit of extra body without having to do a big quilted number. Alrighty, so let's do this here. Great for collars, great for extra thick cuffs and things like that. And again, lots of mobility. So if we turn this over, there it is. So it's stuck down. Just check my corner. Got a little bit here, so I probably need to pay a little bit more attention to those corners while I'm ironing. So really hold this down over the edges here. Make sure it's stuck down. And then, there it is. Again, let that cool, and let's have a look at what that does to our fabric. So here you can see you've got some movement in the fabric here. So it's got more bend. It scrunches up and comes undone nicely, but it's still giving the fabric more than you get from just fabric on its own. So nice and extra oomph to your fabric, but still nice and pliable. Cool. So that is Weft, and it's $5 a meter, 90 centimeters wide. Check. Okay, what's next on your list, Penny? Let's have a look at my thing here. Okay, so next on the list is this guy here. Now this has a lot of hub about it. I'm always impressed that we've been sewing for a billion years and yet we still come up with something new. This product is called Decovil. D-E-C-O-V-I-L. There's two versions of it. There's a heavy and a light. I like the light. I personally find the heavy way too harsh and chunky for the sort of everyday stuff that I do. And we stock the light in the store. I think it's $19 a meter and it's 90 centimeters wide. And I'm going to show you what you would do with it. So here's a notebook cover that I made. So you can see here that the notebook cover is quite crisp, but there's no fluffiness. So this is good for things like wallets and stuff like that, where you want them to have some body, but you don't want any sort of fluffy squishiness to it. So look at that cover there. That's one layer of Decovil in there. Now, before I show you how to press the Decovil, I will say that because it is quite firm, so you can see here it is quite resilient. It's almost, it feels a little bit borderline cardboardy, I guess, but it's not cardboardy. Oh, that's not a very good analogy, but you can see how it's responding here. You want to cut this to the shape of your seam and sew just on the outside of it. You don't really want to catch this into your seam unless you're doing something really structural. Otherwise, you won't be able to turn these curves because it is just that little bit too thick to turn on itself. But other than that, just goes on and gets treated like all your other interfacing. So let's have a look at how to put that on. Alrighty, so shush, over here, another sample. Oh. Honestly, I start off all organized and 6 minutes in, it's all a complete mess. All right, so next sample here, right side down. And as you can see, there's a real thickness thing going on here with this Decovil. So you really can't iron through this at all. So definitely ironing through the fabric. So glue side down, you can see the glue, see the shiny side here? Goes down to the wrong side of the fabric, fold it over, Teflon sheet back down so you don't wreck the ironing board, And again, we're going to press this. And even though the Decovil itself is quite a thick product, it's still the same principle. The heat is going through the fabric. It's warming up that glue. The glue is softening up, soaking into the fibers of the fabric and holding it all together. Pushing firmly with your iron. You don't want to go, you know, just backwards and forwards, easy peasy. You got to put a little bit of muscle into it. Firmly, firmly, firmly. And then check those corners, go into those corners, and let's have a look at that. So this guy here, that's pretty close to perfect. That's stuck down nicely. It's actually quite hot to touch. It holds the heat well, this one. We're going to let that cool down before we play with it too much, particularly if you're doing something that you're going to turn it inside out. And then if we have a look at what that does to your fabric, here's your fabric without the Decovil. And check this out. If I hold this here, look how firm this fabric is. So wallets, card holders, ID holders, straps for handbags, inside the straps for backpacks. It gives this lovely oomph to the fabric and resilience, as you can see here. Now, if you're doing something quite small, you may have to really bunch this up to turn it out the right way. If that's the case, just smooth it all back out and then go ahead and just re-iron it, and that'll melt that glue again and it'll rebond it to the fabric. Cool? Cool. So Decovil, done. Oh, it's hot. All right, next thing on my list. Decovil. Oh, H630, Pellon H630. You guys have all heard this mentioned somewhere along the way. Someone has said it to you, someone's asked for it, someone's used it. I can't find my little bit, I've dropped it. But this is your H630 here. So it comes in a couple of sizes. Pellon is a brand, a bit like Panadol is a brand of paracetamol. This is a fusible fleece, and essentially it's a really soft, light, fleecy sort of polyester with glue on one side, and it gives a little bit of something to your fabric without making it uber thick. And this is something that I made with this. This is just a bowl warmer, so when I get stuff out of the microwave, I can just put it in my lap, and I just put a layer of that on the outside just to give a little bit of extra body to it when I quilted it, and then I just have that soft on the inside. So as you can see, it's got this sort of lovely squishiness about it, but a great deal of resilience, so it pops back out. So really cool for little projects like zipper purses and stuff like that. Probably placemats if you were doing them casually, but you wouldn't do anything very big with this because it is just a little bit light. So it's made more for small jobs like purses and things like that. Now, I'm stalling a bit because I can't find my sample, so I'm going to very quickly chop off another bit here so I can do a little test for you. Done. Alrighty, so let's fuse that to a piece of fabric. And my next bit of fabric is here. Alrighty, so even more fluffier than before. So this fleece here, we will definitely want to iron through the fabric, so it's glue side down. You can see the dots are the glue. Again, down we go, and ironing through, applying that pressure backwards and forwards. H640 was another type of Pellon kicking around for a while. It's thicker. It's twice as thick as the, well, not quite twice as thick, but it's thicker than the H630, and that was made more for wall hangings and things like that. But we tend not to use that too much anymore. It's not around very much these days. Alrighty, so there is your Pellon H630. And just check the corners. Yep, that's stuck down. So you can see here, it's gone and given a lovely bit of body. So almost like a thicker version of this Weft, of this Weft fabric. It's still spongy and scrunchy. We can screw it up and do things with it, but it's giving that extra body and extra oomph to our fabric. And if we hold this up like so, there it is without it, and there it is with it. So giving that extra bit of something to your fabric. Now, if you were going to do something bigger with this, larger bags, placemats and things like that, you'd probably want to start considering quilting this. And the same would go for pretty much anything bigger than an A4 size for all of our interfacings. You want to just do a couple of rows of quilting just to stop them from pulling away as you do your thing with whatever it is that you have. Use the interfacing on. So H630 is $12.50 a meter, and it's 90 centimeters wide. Cool. All right, so next on the list. Oh, let's talk this guy here, Fusible Foam. I love this stuff. There's a couple of versions out there that's like 40 bucks a meter. That's great and everything, but this is a Birch brand. It's 90 centimeters wide. It's 16 bucks a meter, and I've never had any dramas with it at all. What we love about this foam is that it gives a super duper body to a project. So here's a little zipper purse. So it has something about it, but it's still really squishy and pliable, so you can turn it in and out on itself, you know, and it still has that ability to just rebound and stand back up. So larger things, bags, Shez made that big take-it-all tote years ago, big huge square bags, things like that where you want them to sort of be able to stand on their own. And before we tried to use wadding and they go all sort of floppy. So this Fusible Foam is the bomb. Now it's double-sided. It's the only product of the whole lot tonight that we've done that actually has glue on both sides. So what that means is you can wedge it between two bits of fabric if you want to and iron it, and it will hold to either side. I typically just use it as a single-sided. Again, if you're doing something bigger than an A4 sheet, you will definitely need to quilt it. Let's have a look at how we fuse that on. Now, a bit of fabric. Oops, here we go. Doodle-doo. There's our piece of fusible foam. Alrighty, so now this guy here, like I said, you can see the glue. It's on either side. We definitely can't iron through that, but if we turn it over, this glue here is also going to heat up. Oops, also going to heat up and stick. So we're going to put this here. Yes, buy Annie bags, Kylie. She uses it all the time for some cool, crazy stuff. Alright, so we're going to put this down on the Teflon sheet and still go ahead and press it. I don't know how that's a little bit bigger than that sample, but I might just chop a bit off so that it's not giving us any stress tonight. Chop, chop. And it cuts really easy too. Like, check it out, just like snip, snip, snip. It's very easy to manage. And you can keep it in your seam because it compresses so nicely. It doesn't mind being left in a seam either. So let's put that there and go ahead and fuse that into place. And because the heat's going to go through there, not as quickly as the fabric because it's quite thick, but that Teflon sheet, and this is the magic of a Teflon sheet, is that the glue will go through, try to stick to the Teflon on the other side, and it won't be able to do it because Teflon is Teflon. Nothing sticks to Teflon. All right. So that'll do us for the purposes of tonight. So you can see here the glue is stuck a little bit to here. I'm just going to pull that off. And there is my fabric glued to my foam. So that fusible foam, like I said, 16 bucks a meter. If we wanted it to stick to the other side, we could fold in these edges and press them down. And if we go ahead and do this with my sheet and give it another press, for expedience, I'm just going to real quick and stop there so you can get an idea of it. Again, peeling that Teflon sheet away, and you can see we've had it stick to both sides. So you can get an edge of a pocket or something there and then top stitch it. So very nice. Alrighty, so that is your fusible foam. Cool, cool. All right, now some honorable mentions that are non-fusible. And the first one is this guy here. This has a couple of names. Bag weight batting is its actual branding name. Heavy compressed fleece is another name. This is an Australian product by Matilda's Own, Victorian Textiles. Love their products. It is designed to give a great deal of strength and substance to things that you are making. So fabric bowls, placemats, coasters, bags, iPad covers, things like that. As you can see, it's got lots and lots of resilience. There's a couple of different things that are like this that are an American-based product. I think Stitch and Shape is one of them. I tend to be a little bit disinclined to go for those because they don't bounce back very well. So you'll notice if I've screwed this all up so that I can turn my bag out the right way, when I let it go, it's quite inclined to go back to its normal shape. Those wrinkles will just come out as we iron it. But you can see here they're sort of smoothing themselves out. Your Stitch and Shape tends to hold those creases quite firmly. So I'm a big fan of this bag weight batting. We always carry it. It's 90 centimeters wide and it's $14.90 a meter. Now it's not fusible. And I hear you think, oh, I don't want to have to quilt it. So let me show you my most favorite thing in the whole wide world, and that is this stuff here. 606 Fusible Web. It's made by the same peeps you make your good old-fashioned 505 spray. 505 is your temporary quilting spray. It's about $19.50 a can, and we all have a can of that in our cupboard. You should also all have a can of this. It's on new packaging now. They've changed the packaging, but it's about $16.50 for a can. I've had this can legit for as long as I can remember. This is essentially glue powder in a can. I think they say fusible web spray. But essentially, I'm going to spray this on here. I might just put my Teflon sheet down so I don't get overspray on my ironing board. And this comes out like a powder. Like so. Can you see that powder on there? And that now has just become fusible. So it's a bit damp, so I'm going to give that a second to dry so the powder becomes powdery. But what this can does is it makes anything that's non-fusible fusible or double fusible. So if you have Pellon and you have Pellon that is single-sided, your H630 is single-sided, if you want to make it double-sided, so if you're doing a placemat or a coaster or something, you just spray it on the non-glue side, and you can see here it's drying like a powder. See that powder? I wonder if I hold up close. Can you see that powder there? And that will do exactly the same thing as these little dots of glue on here. So that means that not only can you do bag stuff with it, but if you wanted to put interfacing on a shirt, you didn't have fusible interfacing, you can spray that. You can use it to bond any two things together, including fabric, and you can also use it for applique. So if you want to do some applique of just big basic shapes, for free motion applique, you can also use this. So spritzing it on, it's just about dried. Well, I've gone blah, blah, blah. Let's pop this over the top, and we might go this way, and let's fuse it. Oh, like so. I've actually found this stuff is so strong that when I've made a mistake, oh, let's talk about making a mistake. If you happen to stick something on wrong, and the most common thing we do is we have a cutout shape of a particular direction and we do it upside down for the print. Most of the time you can heat it back up with your iron, and then very quickly, because the glue is all wet, loose, soft, you can go ahead and pull it back off. You'll probably find though there's a bit of residue on your fabric, so it might be the end of your fabric. So just experiment it with a little bit, but that will usually rescue you. Alrighty, so now that is fused on. Check it. So here the corners, I just didn't get the spray down there, but here it's stuck to it, and it's made this bag weight batting a really cool thick interfacing. So if you were going to a cosplay thing and you want to give yourself a big Doctor Who kind of collar, that'd be the thing to use. Alright, so bag weight batting, we've covered that. The other thing I want to talk about is this product here, massively underrated product. It's actually a stabilizer for machine embroidery, but it is a cutaway stabilizer, so you can't tear it. It's got to be cut away, but it is also a nice strong interfacing if you want to do perhaps pockets in a wallet, for example. You can go ahead and get nice crisp edges with this by spraying this on it. So it goes from a non-fusible interfacing to a fusible interfacing. Alrighty, I think we're just about done. A couple other things I want to point out to you is this stuff here. First of all, a pressing cloth. Have you heard of a Raja cloth? So what a pressing cloth does is if you are doing stuff where you need a crisp edge, a Raja cloth will help you get a really crisp fold. Again, great for doing wallets and things like that. A Raja cloth, like a proper Raja cloth, which is what these guys are here, is how much? It is... I opened it up and I put the packaging somewhere. I think it's about $6.30 a meter. Oh, $6.30 a pack. But let me show you how it works. So just pick this guy aside for a second. We're going to just quickly do the pleats for our wallet, for our phone, our credit cards and things like that. So do some little creases. You could do some pleats for a skirt, that sort of thing. This little cloth is treated with a chemical that when you iron it, the chemical heats up and then gets absorbed by your fabric, so it transfers the stiffness that's in this, and as you can see it's quite stiff, out of this cloth and into those pleats, really making them nice and crispy and sharp edged. It prefers a steam iron if you can do it. A steam iron will get you a better result with your Raja cloth. Well, I think technically it's a pressing cloth these days, but you can see here, look how crisp these are. When we open it up, you can see it's given this lovely, sharp, crisp edge. I strongly recommend they last forever and ever. And if you're doing bag making and stuff, or indeed dressmaking, a Raja cloth or a pressing cloth is super handy to have. Oh, I found it. It is $6.90 for a pack. All right, and then last but not least, this guy here. This is also from the same people that give us the 505 spray, the odor people. This is a spray stabilizer. So it's basically the best way to think of it. It's like a super duper 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 thick starch, and it's designed to spritz on. But I actually don't like to spritz it. I like to use a brush and just brush it on. So you can see it's quite milky. And I'm going to do this through the camera and not knock the whole bottle over. Let's see if we can do it. So just a nice coarse brush in here, and then brush it on the fabric, and go again, and you can layer this, so you can give it one shot and then come back and do another one and another one. So what it's doing here is it's giving fabric stiffness. I tend to use it mostly for when I'm doing cool stuff on my scan and cut, but it's also a great way if you're doing cosplay again, you're doing like a 70s costume and you want a really thick starchy collar, this is the way to go. And we're going to pop this in either side. Oh, there's a lid on it. It is, yep. Either side of your Teflon sheet, just because it's damp and we don't want it to stick to the iron or your ironing board. And we're just going to iron it until it's dry. So first couple of irons with this Teflon sheet down, just to get the bulk of the moisture to dry up. And then here, the rest of it just with the iron. Nearly done, I promise. And of course, no steam for this one. So we want a dry iron for this because the whole purpose is to dry. So can you see how crispy that fabric is? So it's got this lovely crispness to it, like a nice heavy starch. And if you wanted to make it even crisper, you could do another layer and then another layer and then another layer. Layer, iron. So if you were cutting something out in your scan and cut, to be honest, if you've got the new scan and cut roller blade, you probably don't need it quite so much, but the whole idea is to keep the fabric taut so that you can cut it. And also too, if we fold that over now and iron it, we also get a super, super, super crisp edge, like so. Cool. Alrighty, so looking at my watch, which I remembered to put on today, it looks like it is time. So thank you very much for watching. And I think that'll do. Alright, gang, I will catch you next time. Thursday night next week. Bye.